and welcome to Monday Motivation, the May 25th edition, where we talk about PowerPoints for successful Christian living. We're glad you're here to join us. We're in the middle of a 3-week series on where we cover 3 simple principles for a fulfilled life. In the first week, we talked about success versus fulfillment, and there's a difference between them. Both are important, but success without being fulfilled is empty. And principle number 1 was to love God. So 3 principles: love God, love people, love yourself. So if you missed last week's edition, go to our website, mondaymotivation.ca, and on our website you can pick up last week's edition, or on our YouTube channel. This week we're talking about love people, the second principle. In Luke chapter 10, verse 27, Jesus says, and this is actually echoing the commandments, the first commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind. And then the second command that he gives is to love your neighbor as yourself. So there's a scriptural principle behind this. When we have a right relationship with God, we talked about that last week, that is the first step to fulfillment. The second is to love people. People are God's creation. He created every one of us, the people you like, your family, and the people you don't like. Even they are God's creation. And we have been instructed, we have been told to love people. He even goes on, when he was asked in that story by the rich young ruler, what do I need to do? And Jesus, after he gives those commands, love God, love your neighbor as yourself, he says, do this and you will live. And my take is not only eternal life in the what comes next, but we will live here on earth. Jesus gives us promises and principles not only for the hereafter, but for a fulfilled life now. And this is one of those key principles. Now, the rich young ruler in that story, trying to be smart, says, well, who's my neighbor? And then that's where Jesus comes in with the story we know about the Good Samaritan. A guy's beat up and left for dead on the side of the road, and the first 2 people just pass him by, and they do nothing for him. And along comes this Samaritan, somebody who's considered low life and despised, who then helps this man. And Jesus finishes by saying, who was a neighbor to the man. And the young ruler, he says, the Good Samaritan, the Samaritan who came along and helped him. And Jesus said, then you go do likewise. So in summary, who is our neighbor? Our neighbors not only are the people in our house, the people next door to us, but our neighbors are the people that we come in contact with. Our co-workers, the people on the street, the people in the shopping store. All of the different people that we come into contact with, Jesus, they would fall into that category. They are the neighbors. They are the people that God puts in front of us. So we need to love our neighbors as Jesus instructed. How do we love our neighbors? Well, there's a lot of different ways. Respect. Respect for people. Even if you don't agree with them, I don't have to agree with you, but I can still respect you for who you are. And we respect our differences. We talk about diversity. So diversity is not we all agree with each other, but diversity is we respect each other in spite of those disagreements. We build relationships. How do you build relationships? Well, you take time together. You talk to people. You be there for them when they need you. You build on common interests. So there's a lot of ways that we build relationships. But the biggest thing is investing in people, spending time with people. If you don't do that, a relationship will not build. Show compassion. Give people help when they need help. And I'm not saying just blindly give everything to everybody, but be strategic about it. But be compassionate. Help people who need help. Help those in need. And sometimes showing love to our neighbor is tough love. Now, to just go and be tough on its own, or if you try tough love up front, often that doesn't work. But when you have built those relationships, then you can say the things that need to be said with kindness and compassion. I have friends that I will, over time, I have built up enough of a relationship that I can be honest with them and say the hard things that need to be said. And likewise, they can do the same for me. And we get better that way as we help each other out. But that requires that you build relationships. So that is all part of loving your neighbor. One thing that I do is I pray in my prayer time, Lord, help me to see people as you see them. If people are God's creation, I can see them through my own eyes, and I see the hurt, I see the stupidity, I see the people that hurt themselves, I see people that hurt others, and it's easy to get a very jaded point of view. But I pray, Lord, help me to see past that and to see people with your eyes. I want to see people as you see them. And if you do that, then watch who the Lord puts in your path. People will come across your path, and you say, oh, I see something in them. A perfect example, I've prayed that for a number of years, and in my early 20s, the Lord put in my path a young man that was not in trouble, but high risk because of his home circumstances. And over time, a relationship developed, and we spent many hours together, I would say, sort of in a friendship, mentoring type of relationship. And as he grew, a lot of people didn't see things in him that wouldn't normally be seen, but God put that relationship in place, and over time, he was able to grow and flourish, and now he's doing extremely well. Actually, I'll share more detail on that story in a few weeks. It's quite an interesting story. He's now in his 40s, he's got a family, and he's doing extremely well. But Lord, use me to help, to be one of the people that poured into his life to take him from a circumstance that could have turned out far different. And he used me, along with other people, to make sure that he had the mentoring that he needed to go on the right track. So that is, again, other people in the natural might have not have seen that. He's just a stupid little kid. But seeing him through the Lord's eyes, I saw he needs somebody to be there for him, and I was able to be one of those people. It was quite neat. Again, I'll share more on that in a future episode. Even now, I spend time with a young man. He's in his 20s, and he is in a situation that he's doing quite well, but in his mid-teens, it could have gone either way. And the Lord used me to be part of his life and to help pour into his life, so that now he is on a solid track to be moving forward and becoming a fine young man, for the expression, and somebody who's going to be a valuable contributing member of society. So it's when you ask, Lord, help me to see people as you see them, and you're willing to invest in people, to love people in that way, it's amazing the things that can happen. And even just random circumstances. Not this winter, but the winter before, I shared one example where I was just walking up Yonge Street in downtown Toronto, and this lady was struggling in a wheelchair. And so I have no idea who she is. I'll probably never see her again. But I just said, would you like me to push you? I'm going for the next block, and then I'm into the subway. And she was a bit taken back at first that somebody would just come up behind her and, come around from behind and offer that. But she thought about it. She said, yeah, please. And I noticed that her hands were cold, so I gave her my gloves. I said, here, you can use these more than I can. And just the big smile, the joy that brought to her day, because here she couldn't even get half a block on a snow-covered ice sidewalk in her wheelchair, and her hands were frozen. A simple act of compassion that, a cheap pair of gloves and a few minutes of my time, and it brought so much into her life that day when she was just struggling in the cold, just to go a few blocks. So there's lots of different ways we can help people. We had John on the broadcast here who feeds homeless people in downtown Oshawa a few times a week. And even through this crisis time, he's put measures in place so that he can do it safely and continue to help people in need. There's so many people who just need our help, need us to love them. And as Christians, we're to be salt and light, and that's part of our contribution to society. And the way that you love people might be express that love might be different than the way I have done it in the past. It's different than the way John does it. Then it's different than the next person. But it's up to you to explore, okay, what are the ways, what are my gifts that I can use to love people and contribute to society? So not only are we following God's command, which he gives us not in a restrictive way, but in a way to help us flourish, to give us life. Love God, love people. Next one is love yourself. These are principles that will help you live fulfilled life. But what more is there in it? Well, at Berkeley University, they did a number of studies, and in their findings from those studies, in summary, you can go online and look it up, when we give of ourselves, and giving of ourselves is an act of love, but when we give, it's specific to giving, but not just money, but when we give of ourselves, the summary is, of all these different studies that they've done, it's good for our health. It makes us feel happy. It promotes cooperation and social connection. It evokes gratitude, and it is contagious. All positive things. So giving of yourself in love is not something that's going to have a negative net effect on you, that's going to wear you down, but in fact it's something that builds up society and it builds you up. They have the studies that prove that. So there's lots of reasons behind it. But that is our second principle. Love God, love people. Second principle, love people. My motivation to you this week, my encouragement, look for opportunities to love others. It could be people within your family, it could be within your circle of friends and co-workers, or it could be beyond. But look for opportunities to love others and then say, what can I do? Be strategic about it. What can I do to pour into these people to help their lives be better, to make my contribution as a Christian, as salt and light, as a contributing member of society? So this week, what are you going to do to love others? That's my challenge. Share your ideas on our Facebook page. Our website is monday-motivation.ca. Go to our website. Make sure you're on our mail list so you get the Monday Motivation by email. There's a feedback form where you can share your ideas. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great week. We'll see you next week when we do the third part of this series on Monday Motivation. Have a great week.